You are watching NetSoft IT Academy. 905-812-2923. info@netsoftacademy.com. www.netsoftacademy.com.
Okay, so now let's start with scenario number 5. Scenario number 5 works on the same idea as scenario number 3 and scenario number 4, except now we are adding one more Exchange server to the mix. And we are going to promote that one server or make that one server our client-facing server. So let me quickly get started on promoting the servers to domain controller and creating the users so that we can quickly move on to installing Exchange Server 1 and then installing Exchange Server 2, and finally configuring the settings in such a way that the users connect to that one server there. All right. So first things first, local server. It's the same process again. So I would just quickly just promote the server to a domain controller and then show you what exactly to do next. Yes, and I'll be using this IP address series here, 172.16.10.10 for the domain controller and 172.16.10.20, 30, 40, 50 for the other computers there, in sequence as we go around using them. Okay, so let me quickly promote the server to a domain controller and then we will look at the next steps. So my domain controller has completed installation. I'm going to sign in here quickly. You can see that I'm using the same names. I'm using NetSoft Academy because I mentioned earlier in the previous scenario that as long as it's a single forest, I'll be using the same name because it just makes it easier overall for me to work around with. Now, I'm not going to create a user, I'm just going to create an OU here, but first I'll set up my local server's IP addresses and everything correctly, make sure everything is working, and then I'll move on to the next parts here. On 172.16.10.10. Okay, this is done. I'll disable and I'll enable it. Okay, this is good. Active Directory users and computers. NetSoft Academy. I'll add a new OU here. Now I'll add the users later. I'll add the users both ways this time. One user will be created from the ADDS and the other from the ADUC and the other from Exchange Admin Center. But first I'll move on next to my next server, that is my Exchange server here. Now you can see one thing here, that this machine, when I was creating this machine, it was set for 2 GB because I used the typical deployment, and typical deployment does not let you mess around with the storage and everything or the RAM and everything. So that's why I have this here. But I increased the RAM. Now let me quickly just figure this out. And here we go. This server is now installed or starting, not installed, excuse me. So one of the things that I do to quickly deploy my devices is I use snapshots, and I use multiple snapshots, but there is always the additional risk that it could end up getting corrupted. Even if you revert once or twice, it might end up just creating new issues for you. So just keep an eye out for that. I know you guys can manage all of these things on your own, or you can deploy the new machines, but as a responsible instructor, it is one of my responsibilities to let you know about these kinds of tricks and techniques that I use to speed up my work. So 172.16.10.20 is the IP address for this one, and the preferred DNS is 172.16.10.10. Okay, I'm going to change the work group, domain, netsoftacademy.com. Administrator, password 1350, and I'm going to restart this computer, and once I restart this computer, I'm going to start on the next Exchange server prerequisite installations. So I'll start again with these commands again. You need to know that these commands will be run on every single Exchange server that you create, because these are all part of the Exchange server prerequisite. So I've copied this command here. and I'll wait for the server to restart. Once it restarts, then I'll just go to PowerShell. I'll log in first as the enterprise admin. Then I'll navigate to the PowerShell and I'll run that command first. Now this time, just to add a little bit more flexibility and speed into the process, I'm going to show you another way wherein I try to multitask and make sure all the things are done before I restart the computer and I get started for my Exchange Server installation. So first, at netsoftakademy.com, password 1350. All right. You can see that this is my Exchange server, or sorry, this is my server that will be turned into an Exchange server, not my Exchange server. It's still not an Exchange server yet. We are in the process of making it an Exchange server. So I'll go to PowerShell. I'll run this command here. I'll paste this command. Now, one of the times that this glitches out is when I cannot copy and paste it. So I know that my VMware tools are running in the background, they're still being deployed, so it's okay. It happens. So while this is installing at the moment, I will quickly mount the Exchange Hybrid Deployments ISO on this machine. Quickly mount that ISO. And I'll start with all the prerequisite installations at the moment. So before I end up completing the installation, or before I end up completing that one installation there, I'll start all of these one after the other. So this is my Visual C++ 2013. This is my managed unified API communications module here. Now the only thing I cannot install unless the command prompt is, or the PowerShell is done, is going to be IIS URL. It's going to be this one, the IIS URL module, because I'll show you exactly what will happen. You can see that because the Windows features are being installed at the moment, I cannot install this one here. So I'll have to wait. So that is why I generally prefer completing everything one at a time and then doing it. This way I can make my deployment, I can start my deployment like 5-10 minutes faster, but it isn't saving me any time in the long run due to the amount of misconfiguration chances that exist in this entire scenario here. So I'll have to wait for this to complete first, and then I can install the IIS URL. And now you can also see one thing, that I started my Oracle at the very beginning, and it just popped up. Now, remember one thing, that I generally am not a big fan of this method here. I would rather you do one thing properly, then move on to the other one, than do everything at the same time. I do it because sometimes in the interest of saving a little bit of time, or just as a demonstration purpose as to what could potentially be an issue here, I keep doing this, but I do not recommend anybody does it. Now, because this PowerShell is done here, I can run the IIS URL, and only then my installation will succeed if all of these prerequisites are installed properly. Otherwise, I'll be stuck with a bunch of things that could make or break my entire deployment. Okay, so now I'm going to restart this computer. Okay, so while this computer is being restarted, I will now go to my ADDS again. On my ADDS, I'm going to mount the Exchange Server 2019 ISO. Exchange Server 2019 CU14 ISO. Okay. Now it would be on the D drive. From what I've been noticing, it will be on the D drive. So I'll go to my PowerShell, D:, enter. Now I have the other commands here. So setup.exe, prepare schema. I'm going to run each of these commands one at a time, and I'll show you once all three commands are done. So at this point, all three of my commands are done. You can see that everything is done. I'm going to go back to my Nita MBX01, go on settings and make sure that I've mounted the Exchange server ISO here. Okay, once it's mounted, I can start with the installation process. I'm going to run the setup directly from autoplay. Now, I also showed you how to run it the other way around. You don't have to rely on autoplay all the time. You can do it manually as well if you want to, if you don't see the autoplay option coming up. But if you see autoplay, just reuse autoplay. It's much easier. So I'll let this server complete the installation first, and then we'll move on to the second server. So yes, while there will be one or two things that I'll let you know beforehand, that while this Exchange server is installing, I will also be installing the prerequisites, the same exact prerequisites that we installed on this Nita MBX01. I'll be installing on Nita MBX02 as well. So the entire process remains throughout same. There are very few changes here and there, and those changes are mostly in terms of IP addresses. So that is all we can do here at this point. So I'll show you what exactly I am doing here, and after that we will just click on install and then wait for the installation to complete. Okay, so I'm here, next, use recommended settings, next, mailbox role, next, disable malware scanning, yes, next. Now I'll wait for the prerequisites to be configured and everything to work. And once it gives me the error warning here, not error, remember warning is different, error is different, and I click on install, I'll wait for this installation to complete. And in the meantime, I'll also be setting up the second server, just domain joining the server and making sure that everything is set up on that one server. That is the Nita MBX02 that I need for my second Exchange server. Now at this point, my Exchange server has been installed completely. I'm going to finish it here. And first thing I'll do, like normal, I'll go to my Exchange management shell here. Just make sure that everything works properly. You can see that this is taking a little bit of a small time here, and that is very common. It generally happens when it is deploying the resources and it is taking a little bit of time for the resources to get deployed, and you just have to wait. Worst case scenario, you might have to restart your Exchange server once or twice for everything to start working properly. Now once it says connected here, we'll just navigate to the ECP. Just navigate to the ECP and create two users. We'll navigate to the ECP and create two users. And from there, we can just move on to the next step, and that is installing the new or the next Exchange server that will act as our CAS server or client access server. /ECP/ and yes, always make sure that you're logged in as the administrator and you are on the domain administrator level, which we obviously are. So it makes a lot of sense. Now we are here. So it was NetSoft Academy /administrator password 1350, sign in. Now remember that small glitch with the OWA where it tries to just ask us multiple times for the time zone. So if that happens again, and it will happen again for us here, because you can see that it went back here. I'm just going to click on back 2 times. and just authenticate myself again, or just sign in again, and it will take me back into the Exchange admin center, and I can just start with the next step from here. So I'm going to first click on add user mailbox, new user. So my new username is going to be again be Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton. Now organizational unit. We created the Toronto organizational unit. We can just use that. User logon name P Hilton. Password 1350. Password 1350. Now this is one user created this way. Now the other way is I go to tools, I go to Active Directory users and computers. Under Toronto, I add another user called Megan Fox, M Fox, password 1350, password 1350. Uncheck this, password never expires, next, and finish. And I go back to the browser here, click on add, user mailbox, existing user browse, and you can see that Megan Fox is automatically here. So I can just select Megan Fox, click on save, and now I have the second user here as well. So that kind of gets this done. So now one more thing, you can see this here. If I click on servers, you can see I only have Nita MBXS01 as my mailbox server. So I am going to start with my second mailbox server edition here. So I go to encode MBXS02, now Nita MBXS02, sorry, excuse me. These names keep rolling off my tongue. So this is already set up. So all I need to do now is go on settings, mount the Exchange Server 2019 CU14 ISO, and just start the installation process. Now, there is one thing, however, before we do this, I generally prefer doing this. I go back to my ADDS again, and I run each of my previous commands once. The prepare schema, prepare Active Directory, and the prepare all domains commands, I run them again. The second time when they run a little bit faster. It's easier, because there's no major change. The only reason I run this again is because I do not want to have an issue just because of this. So my prerequisites are already installed. In the time that it took me to install the Exchange server, I already installed my prerequisites and did everything. So I'm just waiting for this to complete. You can see that it's working a little bit faster than normal here. So we'll run these 3 commands again. And once they are done, then we will start with the Exchange server installation. Okay, so my commands are all done. So now I'll go back to Nita MBXS02. Don't check for updates right now. Next. Now the second time around when you're installing Exchange, it works a little bit faster. Now, one thing, it might be very tempting to do this, but please do not do parallel installations. Parallel installations are a bad idea. Quite frankly, because now once you start both of your installations, the resource utilization may or may not be the same. One could be doing something faster, the other could be doing something slower, and that inequality could lead to certain issues. And we want to avoid those issues. We don't want to have those issues be a part of this entire process here. We want to have a relatively issue-free working of this entire project, of this entire product here, or this entire deployment here. That is my goal at least. So please try to keep parallel deployments to a minimum. Don't multitask. It is very easy to multitask, but again, if you multitask and you do the same task on 2 places at the same time, you might end up with the risk of having a process execution failure. So why bother? Why risk that even? Quite honestly. So now I'm waiting for the setup to initialize. Next. Mailbox role. Next. Yes, disable malware scanning. Next. Now once the prerequisites are configured, the installation process will start, and the installation will take a little bit of time. This time, however, it will not take that long. So you can just assume that it will take a little bit less time than what it took for the previous installation. Now you can see that I have 2 warnings here, but no errors, and that is a good sign. So I have started the installation process here. It's the same exact gamut, but this time it will just be a little bit faster, as you can see here. Now, one of the things that you can do while the Exchange server is being installed is that you can configure and set up your workstation machines. So you could domain join your workstation machines, and you can log in as the user, and then you could just download your favorite browser if you want to. So I'm going to be doing that in the side here, because while I'm waiting for this to complete, I already have one Exchange server running here. So I'm not really very out on my luck here. I can wait for this to complete, but I would rather have my workstations connected to my domain controller so that I can just log in as the user and simply see if my mail flow is flowing as planned. That is the idea anyway here. So once we are here, I'm going to log in to this machine. Now I'll just stick to Microsoft Edge. I'll not go for Google Chrome, because quite honestly, even though I have Google Chrome, I by force of habit, I always go for Microsoft Edge, and it is creating a little bit of a chaotic situation for everyone. So I'll not go for that. Instead, I'll just do a domain join quickly. I'll just run a quick domain join. This IP address now will be 172.16.10.40 though. Now, I generally prefer keeping my workstations towards the very end of the scenario, so that I don't have to worry about my resources running out. But I have the resources right now, and I also have the time. So I'm going to use that time to quickly make sure that I get at least the basic work done. So again, excuse me, domain or work group, change domain netsoftakademy.com, administrator, and password 1350. Okay, so this computer is part of the domain. That's perfect. I'm going to restart this computer. That's it. I'm not doing anything else. I'm just domain joining. I'm just trying to make sure that the time I'm spending waiting for this Exchange server installation to complete, I can ensure that my infrastructure is partially ready. Not partially, fully ready at least. Now, remember, there are 5 machines running at the moment. You can see 4 machines are running at the moment. I'm going to go for the 5th one here. Now, if you have an issue running these many machines at the same time, I would very honestly say keep the workstation virtual machines towards the very end. Don't do it right now. First get your Exchange servers done properly and do the steps that are required, and then focus on the infrastructure part. I'm just focusing on the infrastructure part because I have the resources, one, and I also have the time to set up everything right now. So I had a typo in my earlier password attempt, as you can already see here. It's not rocket science, and I also know that I'm not the only person who makes typos. I hope I'm not the only person who makes typos. All right, so one thing, and this is one of the things that I always do when I'm installing a new machine, I turn off my NAT adapter, because I disconnect it altogether, because I don't want to download updates and do anything. So as soon as it comes up online, all I need to do now is just change the IP address, and that way I can prevent any updates from being installed. Now you might be thinking, why do you want to prevent updates? I want to prevent updates because it takes a lot of time when you're installing updates for the machine to install. So 172.16.10.50, 172.16.10.1, 172.16.10.10. Okay, this is good. File Explorer, right click this PC, properties, domain or work group, change, domain, netsoftakademy.com, administrator, and password 1350. And I'm just doing this so that I don't want to do it when I already complete my steps, and then I just want to log in as the user and see if what I did is actually working. That is the idea. Now, one thing, remember this, that the users, these users that we created, their mailboxes exist in a certain location. So for example, if I double click on the user and I look at more options here, their mailbox database is this one. This mailbox 5905970278824. So I'm going to copy this mailbox number, close this, click on servers here, click on databases, click on find, just do Control F, paste it, and you can see that this is my active mailbox and you can see where it is stored. So the user data is being hosted on Nita MBXS01. We are going to make Nita MBXS02 the client facing version. So the version that is visible to the external client. So the user will be connecting to Nita MBXS02, but in reality they are connecting to Nita MBXS01. Their data is being held there. That is the purpose of having a client access server. So now I'll wait for this server to complete installation, and once it is done, we'll move on to the next step, that is configuring the client access server role or client access server settings in this case. The role is no longer available. So my second Exchange server, Nita MBXS02, is also installed. It's done. I just clicked on finish. I'm going to open the Exchange management shell here. And now we are going to run a series of commands. Not a series, but 3 commands basically. Command number 1 is just to see what exactly is there, get all the details. Then command number 2 will be setting our client access server, and then IIS reset to just reset the entire IIS infrastructure. And that will only work after we manage to get our Nita MBXS02.netsoftakademy.com connected from connecting status to connected status basically. Now make sure that your MBXS01 is also running, because in this, like I said, Melee, when you have multiple servers running, multiple virtual machines running, something might go into sleep mode or might get suspended because it has been there for quite a while and you might not realize what exactly is happening. So keep an eye out on that. Now in my case, for example, my workstations are both suspended at the moment, as you can see. And that is there for a very good reason, because I would like to keep my resources a little bit optimized. Okay, so now I'll first go back here, copy the command, paste the command, enter. Now you can see that the get client access server commandlet will be removed, but we would have all of these other things. Now that's true, yes. But this is what I'm interested in. Nita MBXS01 has this auto discover service internal URI. I'm going to copy this file here. Or better yet, I'm going to do this. I'm going to run this command first. As you can see here, I'm setting the auto discover internal URI of Nita MBXS01 to Nita MBXS02. So I go back here, paste it, and I'm going to copy this https Nita MBXS01 netsoftakademy.com/autodiscover/autodiscover.xml file. I'm going to copy that, paste this here, and enter. Now, obviously, I need to put it in double quote so that it can understand what exactly is happening here. And I also need to add one more flag here. Oh, So sorry, my bad. I was just trying to enter something else. Auto discover service internal URI. So let me zoom in on this so that everybody can see this. Done. So now if I run the first command again, get dash client access server, you will notice that both Nita MBXS01 and Nita MBXS02 have the same exact auto discover service internal URI. So that is done now. So this makes both of my any server that I want to connect to, even if I connect to Nita MBXS02, eventually it will just let me connect back into Nita MBXS01. So now I'm going to go to my workstation 1. Now it's already domain joined, as we already saw earlier. It restarted. After that I just suspended the machine to optimize my resources. So here now I will be running, I'll be first logging in as my other user, let's say P Hilton. All right. And I'm going to be sending an email from P Hilton to Megan Fox and administrator like we normally do. But the crazy part is how we are going to access the link. Now we have two Exchange servers. Earlier we only had one Exchange server, so we knew that nitambxs01.netsoftacademy.com/ECP or /OW or /ECP/whatever. But here now, even if we go to nitambxs02.netsoftacademy.com/OWA, we are still being redirected to nitambxs01. And that is the beauty of client access servers. All right, so I'm going to create a new in private window here, just for my peace of mind, quite honestly, because I don't like doing all this work here. https://nita mbxs02.netsoftacademy.com/OWA/. So once I'm here, I'll log in as NetSoft Academy /P Hilton, password 1350. I'll have to set my time zone, obviously. Let us say I select mountain time for now. Remember, the time zone really doesn't matter when it's an on-premises server, because hey, it's just a server. And we are running a production, we're not running a production server, we're running a test server, so it works for us. So to Megan Fox, administrator, subject, test email. This is an email to verify that the client access is being given or obtained through Nita MBXS02. Reply to this email if the access is different. Thanks. And I'm going to send this email. Now remember, part of the reason why we do this entire process is because we need to be able to send emails. Now you see here, earlier my emails were going very quickly, but now here it is in my drafts for a minute. You can see that it will take some time for it to go through the drafts. Then that is because of this new system here. We are adding one more level of delay that is causing this. So, and Nita MBXS02 has to communicate with Nita MBXS01 and check if the user actually has a mailbox and then reroute the emails like that. So now I'll go to Nita Workstation 02. Same process. We are not going to change anything. We are not going to reinvent the wheel here. We are going to do the exact same thing again. This time I'm going to log in as mfox. And once I'm logged in as mfox, then we will do the remaining steps wherein we just do the exact same thing. We just check if the email is being received and if you're accessing it through Nita MBXS02. Now, one other thing that we can always try as a part of this experiment here is on workstation 1, we could close this in new window here, a private window here. We could open a new in private window and go to Nita. Go to NetSoft Academy, Ncode MBXS 0, Nita MBXS 01 at netsoftakademy.com. Oh, it wasn't supposed to be just this. It was supposed to be OWA / and you would still get access. The problem is not with the access. The problem is, however, we only want one server to be acting as our primary client-facing server. That is the issue. Because the user is primarily being hosted on the Nita MBXS 01 server, so they'll automatically get access, but it isn't that big of a problem. Now, once I'm here, Edge, new in private window, and HTTPS Nita MBXS02.netsoftakademy.com/OWA/ Nita MBXS. So I got a typo here. It's just a small issue, nothing major. Advanced, continue. NetSoft Academy /mfox, password 1350. Again, I'm going to choose mountain time again. Click on save. And you can see that I have the email. So my email service is working perfectly. That is great. But I'm able to access everything. Even if my user is being hosted on server 1, I'm able to access through server 2 everything. But you can see that there is a small delay. Now, let us say if I send an email, again from Ncode Nita MBXS02 to mfox again, test email 02. This email is being sent from Nita MBXS 01 to check for delivery speed and quality. Please do not respond, and I hit on send. You see, it's still here. It is still here, but generally it would be faster, like we saw in the previous scenarios. As you see, right now it was here a little shorter than previously. Now, on this end here, however, the user is getting both the emails. The Megan Fox is getting both the emails, and that is perfect. And this is what we want to ensure, that we can see the difference in the speeds as well. Even though it is not a big difference in speed, imagine if you have a server farm of 35 or let's say 40 or 50 Exchange servers on one location, and there's one client access server, you could see the speeds being different. And that is the idea here. And with this, our scenario also comes to an end. Thank you for staying up until this point. And please stay tuned for more interesting and more complex Exchange server scenarios. Thank you.
Thank you for watching NetSoft IT Academy. 905-812-2923. info@netsoftakademy.com. www.netsoftakademy.com.